Hi, Paul Thacker's Good News Plan. I'm speaking to David Leopold. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm good, Paul. How are you?
Okay, good. You're a lawyer, is that right?
I am, but try not to hold it against me.
I won't. No, lawyers are very helpful, and we're going to talk about a way in which lawyers are helpful and about immigration as, I guess, the forefront here. There's going to be a National Day of Action, I guess, for the subject of immigration. What actually is immigration? How did that begin, and what's the concept on that?
So the National Day of Action? Well, what's going to happen is tomorrow we're going to be up on Capitol Hill with folks that represent families, folks that represent religious institutions, and workers and employers and doctors and hospitals, all array of American economy and folks. And we're going to demand and ask and try to educate Congress on the House and on the Senate side to roll up their sleeves and get to work and fix this broken immigration system that we have in this country that's not doing anybody any good. Bring it into the 21st century.
Okay, so, I mean, there's, we have a country, the world somehow got broken down some time ago into countries, and every country has, I guess, rules and regulations on who, in my mind, I always call it segregation, who they will segregate, who can come into their country and who can't. Isn't that so?
That's right. And at bottom, immigration is about who we are. Immigration is about who we are as a culture, who we are as a country, where we're going, what kind of a country do we want to be? Do we want to be a country that welcomes researchers? Do we want to be a country that beckons the best and the brightest to come here and study in our institutions and contribute to the economy and be part of our art and the fabric of our social culture? Or do we want to be insular? Do we want to be a xenophobic? Do we want to be afraid of the outside world and roll down the shades and lock the door? I, for one, know which kind of country I want, and I think most Americans want this country to continue to be the leader in the free world and to be the leader of nations, not only in terms of economics, but in terms of culture, in terms of sport, in terms of food, and all aspects. I mean, America is a unique thing, and it got this way because of immigrants. It got this way because we were put together as this sort of crazy melting pot that somehow works, this experiment. And, there's those that want to cut it off. There's those who want, one nationality. They want one color of skin. They want one of everything. They don't want any kind of diversity and growth. And this is an opportunity. We have a broken immigration system. Yes, we do. It is outdated. It was put together in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and it's kind of like trying to use an abacus to do math. I mean, it's kind of backward. So we need to fix it. We need to update it. We need immigration 2.0, 3.0. We need to bring it into the 21st century, and we need to do that in a couple of different areas. We need to make sure that it's business friendly, that businesses can bring in enough workers to meet their needs, and that when there are shortages of American workers, that they can fill those slots with needed foreign talent, and make sure that American jobs are protected and American wages are protected. We need to do that on the family side. We need to make sure that people aren't waiting 10, 20, 30 years to bring in a spouse or a husband or a family member. And we need to make sure, of course, that the system guards American values of due process and rule of law.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask, mainly because actually I've been involved with this immigrant situation, I guess for a long time, but for professionally 25 years. Because I had a multicultural advertising and marketing company. And so I dealt with most of the ethnic communities here in America and or worldwide. And then, in fact, I did the amnesty program for the Asian American for the U.S. Census. I was involved with that. So I know the immigrant laws and regulations are massive. Let's stay with the people that are here that are what people will say are not legal immigrants. Is there some thought in that regard? Let's start with that.
You mean the folks that are here without documents, the unauthorized population?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, let's get them out of the shadows, and the way to do that is to create a program by which they earn their way to lawful status. Nobody gives them anything. They register with the U.S. government and undergo rigorous background checks so that we know who's here, number one. Number two, if Congress concludes that they should be fined stiffly for, being in the country without documents, so be it. They pay a fine. We need to make sure that, they're operating in English, because that, after all, is what business operates in this country, so that they learn English. And that they get to the back of the line, that they wait their turn for lawful status. But in the meantime, they're in compliance. That's what we need to do. So offer a pathway to compliance, to lawful permanent residence at some point for those who are here without documents and who can pass the rigorous background screenings, number one. Number two, at the same time, you have to remember the undocumented population is not the problem. It is a symptom of a very dysfunctional and broken system that you've just described. So we need to fix the dysfunction. We need to make sure that businesses can compete globally. And how do they do that? But they need to be able to bring in workers in areas that are shortages. Let me give you an example of one of the absurd rules in this country. We have a shortage of nurses in America. We have a shortage of registered nurses. So the law says, you can bring in nurses because we have a shortage. But the immigration law says we don't have enough visas for nurses. Now, how absurd is that? On the one hand, you have the Department of Labor begging for nurses. On the other hand, you got the immigration law saying, sorry, no nurses allowed because we don't have visas. It doesn't make any sense. That kind of dysfunction has to be fixed because that doesn't work to the benefit of anybody. And I could go on and on with different types of dysfunction. So
let's use that as an example. So it's like a poorly run company, I guess you could say. One department says yes, another department says no. So they're both government agencies, right? And the visa department, in essence, is not in sync with the Department of Labor, right?
Well, I wouldn't say yes, but I wouldn't say it's the department's fault. I mean, the department is just applying the law that they have, that Congress gave them, and they're throwing their hands up themselves and saying, what the heck are we supposed to do? So the culprit is not the agency. The culprit is Congress. Congress needs to, frankly, get off of it, however you want to describe it. Get up and roll its sleeves and get to work and fix this system. I mean, they talk, and we hear sound bites coming out of Capitol Hill daily on all kinds of issues. We hear the president talks a nice game about immigration. In fact, he devoted a good chunk of his State of the Union to it. He talked about, in his State of the Union address, President Obama talked about Sputnik. Remember that? Talked about the Sputnik moment. Well, the Sputnik moment, that was when the Soviets launched Sputnik, and we were challenged in the 60s to meet that challenge with our own space program, and we won. Why did we win? We won because of foreign scientists who had immigrated to the United States and helped us build rockets. That's how we won, immigrants. And so our Sputnik moment is now. We need to fix this immigration system so that we are competitive. But the president needs to show leadership on this issue. And I love hearing him talk, but I need to see action. We all need to see action. We need to see action from the White House in concert with Capitol Hill. We are all tired, sick and tired of partisan politics, whether it's shutting down the government or whether it's getting in the way of basic functions, basic services for Americans. We're tired of it. We need the government to do its job. They all run during the election. They all talk about changing Washington. Well, now's an opportunity to change the country and to give us an immigration system that keeps America competitive, keeps Americans safe, and secures the border.
Let me ask you a question here. Just, I don't know if you want to speak as the president of the organization and or personally as a lawyer or whatever, but I guess I'll speak as my own personal beliefs here. So I believe that there should be open immigration, period. Actually, I believe there should be open immigration worldwide. Actually, I believe there should be no country that, countries thing is a question mark in my mind. Either way, a personal and or president of the organization, do you think we need immigration? I mean, laws to say that somebody. I mean, I think there needs to be rules and regulations. If we have a country of who could get in, if they're criminal, then we should know all that stuff and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no difference between my personal view and the view of the organization on this. Look,
okay.
I believe that America is a country that was founded on the rule of law, And
Okay.
I think the society operates best, or operates under rule of law. We do need an organized culture. And yes, I do believe in the sovereignty of the United States. And the sovereignty of the United States means you have to regulate the borders. You have to make sure you know who's coming in. So I believe in the improvement of the immigration law, taking the immigration policy and the law and making it work for America. That's what I believe in. That's what I think. AILA has devoted itself to three real principles. And number one is, and I've devoted my practice to this, and that's improving the law, and that's advocating in the agencies for a fair and honest interpretation of the law, and that's advocating in the courts for a fair and honest and straightforward interpretation of the law. And on those three principles, I think we should be operating. We can all agree or disagree about levels of immigration and whether we should have opened or closed them. Those are issues that are people's personal political preference. But I think at bottom the reality is that we are going to, for the foreseeable future, hopefully, this country will operate as a unit, a federal level, the United States, and we need to have a system that meets our needs and meets our future flow needs and meets the needs of American business and American family. That's what I think, and that's I know what we've been working for as AILA, and we'll continue to work for that.
Okay, David, last question. What's good news for you?
What's good news for me is that Americans are smart, and Americans want this system fixed. You know, the numbers show across the countries that everybody, that Americans by and large want a fix to this immigration system. And I know, it doesn't always come fast in this country, but this country, the folks in this country, the common sense wisdom of Americans. I'm from Ohio. I practice law in Ohio. Common sense wisdom in the Midwest or in the South or in the West of average Americans will prevail, and we will fix this system. So that's good news. The question is when. And when depends on people getting on the phone and calling their congresspeople, senators, congressmen, members of Congress, and demanding that they do their job. The last two elections have demonstrated the power of the ballot box, and we can all think back to 2000 when, President Bush won the election, or didn't win, depending on how you look at it, but it was by a few votes. Every vote counts, and people ought to be out there demanding that this government fix the immigration system to the benefit of all Americans and keep us competitive in the 21st century.
Okay, David, thank you very much for sharing good news with us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.